Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome once again to our podcast. This is episode 119 of your Tax-Free Life podcast. Today's episode is titled The Importance of Debt Elimination in Retirement. Once again, the importance of debt elimination in retirement, which is one of the major areas that I have been focusing on now for a while because, as you all know, my practice is comprised of three parts. We do a tactical retirement blueprint, which includes retirement distribution planning, tax planning, and then last but not least is debt elimination planning, and that's the one that I want to talk a little bit more about today. Now, over the past 2.5 years, you have heard me talk about how to eliminate debt at different stages of your life and the importance of being debt-free at the point in time that you retire. Because if you're debt-free, then you're going to have a lot more leverage than if you still owe a lot of money at the point in time that you decide to take your retirement and start taking money out of your retirement distribution plans and so forth. So I want to talk about three areas today that I think are going to be very important for all of you to pay attention to. Number one would be the why. The importance of the why of debt elimination in retirement. Number two would be, everything that we buy is actually financed, and I'm going to go through details on that because most Americans don't think that's the case. And then last but not least, I want to touch upon the four pillars of debt elimination in retirement. So talking a little bit about the why, along with inflation, I would argue that debt is the second silent killer, because if you carry a lot of debt with you, whether you are not in retirement or whether you are in retirement, and obviously that's putting a tremendous amount of pressure not only on yourself, but also on your family and on your retirement assets. And the bottom line is that, this country is made up of debt. Americans owe a tremendous amount of money in debt, and, this is a country that is all about buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling. And we buy things, at the end of the day, we buy things we don't need with money that we don't have to kind of impress people we don't like. So we buy things we don't need with money we don't like to impress people that we don't like. And that's, how most American families have been running their lives for many, many years. Now, if you take a look at the average American, they're actually exposed to about 5,000 buying opportunities or buying marketing opportunities every single day. Obviously, and that's an enticement from financial institutions and marketing institutions. And no wonder that we have so much debt. If you get in your car and you're driving down the street, you're going to see all the stores, and they're going to have, sales and signs outside. If you get on the expressway or the highway, you're going to start seeing all the highway signs. If you turn on the TV or you're listening to the radio or any type of podcast, many of you have listened to my podcast, and there's also advertising in my podcast. And the advertising in all of these areas is to, kind of help you, and this is the goal of every financial institution out there, is kind of motivate you and to help you part with your money so you can give it to them at a point in time that you may not need it. So, I do a lot of planning for clients, and obviously debt is something very important because at the end of the day, everyone wants to be debt-free by the time they retire. But very seldom do I find that in the type of business that I do. Now, some of the clients that I do business with, they don't carry debt, they just carry liability. And there's a big difference for those of you that may not know this. There's a big difference between debt and liability. See, if you carry debt, if you carry $100,000 of debt, it means that you don't have the money to be able to pay it off, so you have to carry it as a debt, and then obviously you have to make your monthly payments every single month in order to service that debt. If that same $100,000 you have it as debt. But you also have $100,000, and you have more money that if at any point in time you wanted to pay that debt off, you would. But you just choose not to. Then that is no longer a debt; it's now a liability. And the reason why it may be a liability for many of my clients is they're actually making more money on their money than the debt servicing that they're doing on that $100,000 of debt. So if you don't have the money to pay off your debt at any given point in time, then it is truly a debt. But if you have the money to pay that debt off at any point in time in the future, if you choose to, then it is no longer a debt; it's a liability, and you're carrying that liability, for a reason or for a purpose along those lines. So make certain that, in the worst possible scenario, make certain that you can transfer those debts to become liabilities, because if they're liabilities, obviously there's always a way out if you really need to at any point in time in your life. So knowing that, the goal of every financial institution is to get at your money and to get as much of it as they possibly can, then it'll give you the ability for you to be able to minimize those marketing opportunities and the exposure that you have to those 5,000 buying opportunities that you're being bombarded with every single day of every single week for the rest of your life. Now, when you take a look at debt in retirement, you have to start thinking from the following perspective. Debt in retirement is like swimming with a 50-pound weight on your back, because it's kind of dragging everything else that you can possibly do. As a matter of fact, I would argue that debt has a detrimental impact on the Fatal Four of retirement. And you have all heard me talk about the Fatal Four for a number of years now, which is the four major things that will happen to any of us and any of you at any point in time in retirement, which would be, the risk of dying too soon, the risk of living too long, the risk of living with a disability, and then the risk of living with eroding factors like taxes, inflation, interest rate volatility, stock market volatility, propensity to consume, which includes debt, lawsuits, and so forth. So if you carry debt with you into retirement, it's going to make the Fatal Four even more challenging for you and your family to be able to manage. So one of the recommendations that I would make to all of you is to take a look at your debt. Make certain that you can try to pay off that debt as quickly as possible. I'm actually going to discuss a program that I'm using for many of my clients today that I think you will enjoy. But it's something important that you do your due diligence. Figure out, what is the APR, what is the annual percentage rate and the interest rate that you're paying, and then add all of those interest rates, because that's going to become the volume of interest that is going to be so bad for you. Penicillin is really, really good, but if you take too much of it, it can actually kill you, while the same thing is with debt. So the first thing that I try to do with many of my clients is get them to shift from having a debt to having a liability, and that's obviously that's the first step in order for you to reduce and or eliminate your debt prior to retirement. Now, let's talk a little bit about the second point, which is everything that we buy in this country is financed. Now, I have had a number of clients that have said to me, Bert, I don't finance everything. I just pay cash for everything. So if I'm going to buy an item, I'm going to save my money, and then I'm going to pay cash. And then if I want to buy something else, I'm going to start saving my money again. I'm going to get it to the point where I can now buy the item, and I'm going to do so, and this is how I run my life. Well, I would argue that everything that you do is financed. Everything that you purchase in this country is financed. And the reason for that is that you either pay up or you give up. You either pay interest to someone else when you finance a purchase item, or you fail to receive interest on your money by paying cash. And there's an exercise. I'm going to do a video in the next couple of days on automobile purchases, and that's going to be one video that I would love for all of you to watch, because it's going to give you the ability to truly understand the difference between paying up or giving up interest, which is so important in every financial decision that you and your family are going to be making moving forward into the future. Now, I would also argue that every purchase should be calculated for its opportunity cost. And one of the biggest challenges for many of my clients and most Americans is that they just don't know what the definition of an opportunity cost is. And the definition of an opportunity cost is simple, yet it takes an outside of the box kind of thinking in order for you to understand it. Opportunity cost is that cost that you're willing to give up when you choose to do something else. So let me give you an example. If you're going to buy a car, do you buy a car every 5 years or you buy a car every 10 years? Now, if you buy a car every 5 years and you pay $30,000 for the automobile, not only is the automobile costing you $30,000, but also the finance company is going to charge you an interest rate, so that's going to add on to the cost of the automobile. And then the fact that $30,000 would be gone from your personal economy for the rest of your life, had you not purchased that automobile and had you invested that money at a 5, 6, 7, 8% rate of return, what would be the ultimate value of that account, let's say at age 65? It would be an enormous number compared to the original purchase of the automobile of $30,000. So you have to consider that as an opportunity cost. Now, I know what you're going to say to me, well, Bert, if I don't have a car, I can't go to work. If I can't go to work or I can't go run my business, then chances are I'm not going to make any money, so it's going to be a moot point anyways. And I understand that. But where you need to consider doing a calculation for the opportunity cost of every buying decision that you do is, and this is one that I do for my clients, is, well, if you happen to be someone that maintains your cars, what would be the opportunity cost of buying a car every 5 years, for example, like many of my clients do, over a 30-year period? That means you're going to purchase 6 automobiles. And obviously with that, it's going to come not only the financing of the $30,000 of automobile, the inflation because cars continue to go up every year, the insurance that you got to pay for it, and then obviously the opportunity cost on that times 6, and that would be just for one vehicle. Now, how many families do you think only have one vehicle in the family? I mean, if you are just a husband and wife, both of you are going to have each a vehicle. If you have still children in the house that are in school, you're probably going to buy them a car. So I have seen families, in my own personal family, there was a time that we had 5 automobiles in my family, and guess who was paying for that? I was. So, but the opportunity cost that I'm about to share with you is interesting, because what if you were to decide to buy, instead of a vehicle every 5 years and over a 30-year period purchasing 6 automobiles, what if you buy one every 10 years? Well, you're still going to have an opportunity cost, but it's not going to be based on 6 vehicles. It's going to be over 3 vehicles. So the opportunity cost, or the recapture of that interest that you would have foregone for the rest of your life, now it's on your side of the ledger, and at least you've been able to recapture 50% of those costs just by purchasing a vehicle every 10 years as opposed to every 5 years. So now again, you can apply this to just about everything that you do in life, whether it's buying computers or anything that you can think. Make sure that you apply the opportunity cost, because many a times what you will find, for a number of my clients, is that when they start doing the opportunity cost of buying something, many a times they decide not to do it. And they decide not to do it because they're not willing to pay that long-term opportunity cost, and they'd rather keep that money on their side of the ledger as opposed to the financial institution's side of the ledger, which is what they would want you to do on an ongoing basis. Now, another point here is that the average American actually spends, 34.5 cents out of every dollar on interest payments and the servicing of debt. And that's a big number. So that means just north of 1/3 of every dollar that you earn is going toward interest payments. And also be aware of the following. I know that many of my clients, when they come to me and they say, Bert, I'm going to buy a piece of property, does it make sense for me to finance it over 30 years or 15 years? They're only paying attention to the interest rate. But then I get them to start thinking outside of the box, and I get them to start looking at their finances through a telescope as opposed to a microscope, as many of you have heard me say many times, because it's not the interest rate, it's the volume of interest that kills your finances and kills your retirement life. So you need to make certain that you do your due diligence accordingly. And then point number 3, I want to talk a little bit about what I call the 4 pillars of debt elimination in retirement. And I use a debt elimination program, I would argue is the best one in the country, that is helping my clients reduce and or eliminate all of their debt in 1/2 to 1/3 of the time that they would otherwise be able to do it. So it's a tremendous value for a lot of my clients, because when I do a tactical retirement blueprint for them, and now I bring the tripod of that tactical retirement blueprint, which is retirement distribution planning, tax planning, and debt elimination, then that gives them a tremendous control of their finances in retirement and of their retirement life. And once again, as I always say, all they have to do moving forward is to try to wake up every day on the green side of the grass, and life is going to be good for them, because I provide them with guaranteed paychecks and options and volatility buffers and volatility squares, which are the type of work that I do for my clients, thus giving them a tremendous amount of leverage and opportunity for a successful retirement life. But the 4 pillars of debt elimination, number 1 is strategic payoff. There's a way to pay off your debt, and you don't have to add any additional monies to it if you don't want to. But there's a strategic time on a monthly basis in which to pay off your debt in order to reduce the amount of interest that you're being charged on a daily basis. Financial institutions want to make that payment at the very, very end of the month, because they're going to be able to hang on to your money and make money on your money, and that's how banking institutions make their money anyways. So if you use a strategic payoff, then it's a great way for you to do it. The second one is interest accumulation. So if you're able to use OPM, which is a technique that I use with many of my clients, which is using other people's money, OPM, then you're able to keep the money on your side of the ledger earning interest. And I don't care if it's a 1% interest or whatever it may be. If somebody's going to earn interest on your money, let it be you and not the banking institution. Number 3 is what we call interest float, in which you're using other people's money for a period of time in which if you pay off that debt, then there's no interest being charged to you, so you're actually using someone else's money without having a cost to you or your family. And then last but not least is interest calculation, because when you combine your strategic payoff, your interest accumulation, and your interest float, then you're able to reduce, in most cases, the debt and the payments and the savings of interest by tens of thousands of dollars, which will give you the ability to pay off all of your debt by 1/2 to 1/3 of the time that you would have had otherwise if you had used or done traditional banking ways in which they would want to have you do the banking with them, which is not in your benefit, it is actually on their benefit. Now, for those of you that may be interested in getting a free report, I'll do this for you. If you reach out to me, and I'm going to give you my information in a minute, I'll go ahead and put together, and this would be obviously confidential information because I'm heavily regulated, as you all know. So I will do a tactical retirement blueprint that will include the debt elimination portion of it, and this will be a free report that will give you the benefit of understanding that if you do things based on the debt elimination software program that I use for my clients, how much debt will you be able to reduce? What would be the opportunity cost that you would recapture on that debt? And most important, what would be the day and the year in which you will be debt-free for the rest of your life? So for those of you that may want to engage me on that, please feel free to give me a call, and we'll schedule a 20-minute or a 40-minute conference call at no cost or obligation to you. My telephone number is area code 786-766-1042. You can also send me an email at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, B-E-R-T at BERTSALAZAR.com. And always remember that for every podcast, every video that I put out, every webinar I'm actually hosting this coming Saturday, July 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm hosting the Bert Salazar Virtual Retirement Summit. So if any of you is interested, you can send me an email once again, and I'll get you the link so you can join us this coming Saturday, because I'm going to be covering a lot of information that many of you can benefit from. But once again, my goal for each and every one of you is to kind of help you change the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. So once again, thanks very much for giving me a few minutes of your time, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Have a great week. Stay safe. I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.